my last video essay, I explored why SCP games would be hard to create due to questions of the scope and complexity. But several commenters and one person who came and personally gave me feedback over Discord, very cool, felt that one major background detail for game development was missing from the list of potential issues: licensing. And today I want to explore what that means, how the license works, and the challenges it might create for game devs. First off, a license is what determines how people can interact with a product. SCP uses the CC by SA license. I made a short quickly explaining how it works, but I'll give a quick summary here. Anyone can use SCP content in any way, but they have to credit the authors of the stories and articles they use, and also must license their work with the CC by SA license. So, if I write a book and include an SCP, whoops, that book is now CC by SA, and anyone can upload it for free. Now, this is usually seen as a problem for games, as devs who don't make them free won't be able to stop anyone from pirating it. But this actually isn't true and gets more complicated. Remember, licensing is a legal issue, and legal issues are well known for being easily managed, digestible, quick. Yeah, I'm obviously lying. You probably would have an easier time just putting everything up for free for everyone to use, like Regalis did with Containment Breach, but many game devs don't want to make something for free. They want to get money from their game. We all need to pay the bills, but that becomes difficult if it's all using that license. Okay, so there are ways to protect your code, and this can help you earn money on your project and prevent piracy, but how does it work? Don't worry, I've read a bit about licenses for this video, so I'm basically an expert now. This video does not contain legal advice. I am not a professional in any way. So I gotta be honest, this license is mostly just made up of magic. It says pretty clearly that if you want to use something that's CC by SA, the rest of the project has to also use the CC by SA license. It has to spread. So how are there SCP games that are actually owned and protected by their creators, which you can't legally pirate? Well, because of some weird case law. The very first legal case about share-alike you can find on the Creative Commons website pretty much justifies how you can legally use CC by SA licensed works in parts of a project without making the rest fall under that license, despite literally a third of the license being about this. In 2015, an Atlas company was sued by a photographer because their photograph, protected under CC by SA, was included in an atlas that did not use the CC by SA license. The company claimed they were totally following the license because they gave the photographer credit, and the court agreed. Apparently, because the atlas was not just a derivative work, but a compilation of many works which belonged to others, it was fine to just attribute the photographer properly and not put the entire atlas under CC by SA. I have no idea how that makes any sense because, again, literally a third of the license is about the exact opposite of this decision. But hey, I'm not a judge, I'm just a guy reading exactly what the license says. And it's pretty obvious how this would work for a game. If my good friend, let's call him Hubert, made his own SCP game, he would have to acknowledge that the SCPs he used weren't his and credit the authors. Even though he made new models for them, he's still just copying their work, so he can't own the assets. But the code and audio he created for the game would exist separately from those and are totally his to claim ownership of. Now, this is how some SCP games seem to do it. They own all the code and many models, but attribute ownership of specific assets to the SCP wiki, which falls under CC by SA, as do those particular models. In other words, it's their compilation of works, and they're following all the rules on bringing other people's stuff into it. So I guess the whole license is kinda pointless. If you can just include enough other stuff, you can do whatever you want, even though a third of the license. Now, I also found this 11-year-old Reddit comment from a deleted account, the most trustworthy source of information. I know, I'm really pulling out the big guns for this one. If the compilation argument somehow didn't work, they argue that technically you could say the assets you're using aren't really part of the game, the assets are packaged with the game, and the engine calls them at runtime, which is somehow totally different. 11 years ago, it had never been tested in court. Still true. Does anyone want to help me set legal precedent real quick? Okay, so besides having to figure out all the weird stuff about licenses, you would have to figure out what licenses everything has to fall under. That is, if you want to earn money off your game, you need to go through that process and hope you're not doing something that ruins everything. And that might be hard for a small team. But what about bigger groups? No! It is very rare for large groups to form around SCP games. It is pretty difficult to get a dedicated group of people to work on a game when you're not a larger business. Affray Interactive, the devs of 5K and the upcoming Josie, are probably the biggest dev studio in the SCP genre. Northwood is also there, but they occasionally update one game while Affray has two, and that's kinda all we have, at least in terms of relatively polished products, what looks to be relatively polished. When you start getting larger into AA and AAA studios, that's when brand new issues present themselves. There's no chance we will ever see an SCP game from a large company. I'm gonna try so hard to not go into AAA game. We'll get to that. The fact is, any model they make for SCPs are gonna have to be Creative Commons. Every fan game people make cannot be taken down. They don't have full ownership over the thing they're making, which is a risky business decision. On top of that, it's risky to use something that has such a specific community, and one which has already experienced and will continue to have issues and controversies and drama that will directly affect the image of the product, which can't be controlled. I think the largest game there is for SCP fans, which people keep telling me to play, and I will, I swear, is Control, a game that is only SCP inspired, to avoid all the copyright issues that would come with making an SCP game. So yeah, licensing is a potential major issue for making a game. It's time-consuming, it's complicated, it's being held together by hopes and dreams. I wanted to avoid this topic in my initial video, because I don't even fully understand how licensing works. There's whole jobs for that, but I also feel like it's easy to paint it in a way that's discouraging, and I honestly think there's a silver lining here that isn't looked at enough. I don't want a AAA SCP game. I don't want these money-hungry businesses that don't actually care about communities to make a game from a website that is only made up by its community. The people have put their passion and their souls into, because chances are greedy companies aren't going to get it. They aren't going to understand how important it is to get this right and treat it with respect, and it seems to me that many people agree. As of right now, the licensing situation is weird, but I do think it also protects the SCP community from predatory business behaviors intended only to squeeze every penny from your wallet. In an ironic way, corporations are so greedy that they can't use this property. They couldn't own literally everything about it, and they won't bother trying, and I think that's worth it. As for smaller dev teams, they do have an annoying legal issue to work through, but I sort of assume making a whole game is the actual hard part here. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'm gonna switch to bi-weekly content because I'm really busy now, but I have a bunch of videos that you'll be seeing throughout the next couple months at least. I'll see ya.